What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Jason Blaha, representing Jason Blaha Fitness here. I'm just kidding, guys, so I'm not going to rip off Chris Jones there. But now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events, I guess, in the whole sports world today, because Jon Jones got popped for failing a drug test. Let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing. Work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. All right, I've had a bunch of people ask me if I cover this. They say, yeah, we know it's not online fitness at the moment, but you're one of the only guys on here who talks about drug testing, talks about how guys pass drug testing, maybe has experience helping athletes pass drug tests. Yes, I do. So, that being said, what happened here? He got popped for turinabol, and people are like, well, he didn't get popped in camp and all this time, and he gets popped at the weigh-in. What in the heck went wrong? How'd this happen? What went down? Pretty simple, guys. There have been new tests that have come out for T-bol, turinabol, whatever you want to call it. T-bol is a slang term for it. It's actually not that great of a substance. It's not particularly great. It's an okay anabolic. Slightly toxic, not particularly strong. So people are like, well, why would anyone bother with it? Because even though it's like a 50-year-old substance, it's been very hard to develop metabolite tests for. It's been very difficult. In fact, my guys used to use it. When I used to help college football players pass their drug test, T-bol was very, very heavily utilized for that reason. It's generally test suspension, growth hormone, and T-bol. That's what worked for them, because back when I was doing this well over a decade ago, that was a foolproof method to get through testing. Like, you couldn't get popped as long as you were in short bursts of T-bol. You didn't get popped on the randoms, like you just messed with T-bol when you knew you had drug tests coming up. And when they would hit on the training camps or whatever, they would only test the guys in the morning. See where I'm going with this? Guys only got tested in the morning. So at night they would pop their growth hormone and test suspension. They'd be good to go, right? They'd be good to go. T-bol, up until a few years ago, only had a 72-hour detection time. Had no detection time in urine. I'm sorry, in blood. Blood, it didn't show up. Generally, blood tests, you were usually clear for it within a day. The only time they could catch you on blood is if you took it the day of the test. In urine, it was 72 hours. So 72 hours after the last pill, people came up clean on urine. New tests have been developed for this. In fact, if you guys remember back in the 2012 Olympics when they developed new tests right after that? There was a news story run to where the 2012 Olympics, this substance came up before, didn't it? Yeah, it was all over international news. In 2013, they developed a new metabolite test for T-bol. And out of the urine samples that they kept from the 2012 Olympics, they retested them with the new test. What did they find? They found over 200 urine samples that had been clean with 2012's testing. With the newer test, came up positive. Whoa, over 200 people tested clean with the test they were doing in the 2012 Olympics, which they spent $4 billion on. $4 billion. The new test caught 200 people. Well, what changed? They found a metabolite test that could detect it up to a week instead of 3 days. They over doubled the detection time. That's how close Olympic athletes in the 2012 game were running it. There were people who had taken this substance within a week of being tested before the games. A week, who came up clean because they all knew what the current testing times were. This is one of those substances that there's been a lot of work thrown in to catch people on it, because it's been used so heavily in drug-tested athletes, that there's been real work to try to hammer down on it. I would suggest that maybe Jon Jones and his coaches got popped with a test they didn't know about. Maybe he thought they were going to be subjected to the test they were using 6 years ago. The test 6 years ago was a 72-hour detection on urine. He could have stopped taking it 4 days, 5 days before the weigh-in. In fact, it's a real good weigh-in substance because it doesn't cause any water retention. Maybe he came off of it 4 days before a weigh-in, 5 days. They hit him with the 1 week test, or he came off over a week ago, and a newer test has been developed that hasn't been publicized yet that might detect it 10 days or 2 weeks. That's also a possibility. And here's the thing. It's a big deal, but is it to say that everyone else he's competing against aren't on stuff? Of course they're all on stuff. Let's just deal with reality here. Modern sports, no one wants to see natural athletes anymore. And this is where we stand on the big conflict with all of this. You know, because people say, like, Jason, how could you say that when in the same token in other videos you're talking about the dangers of abuse? Because I'm a realist. You know what? Abusing these substances can kill you. All right? I hope no one's in denial of that fact. All right? A large use of these substances, excessive use of any of these substances is potentially deadly. For some people with underlying medical conditions, moderate use could be deadly. I'm generally against abuse. I'm okay with people using these things in moderation, having a good doctor, if that's the choice that they need to make for whatever reason. I'm not telling anyone to go out there and do it, because I certainly don't want them to. I don't want anyone to just randomly start on a bunch of anabolic drugs. I don't think that's a good mindset. But if for whatever reason people decide they need something in their life like this, it's their body, do what they want with it. I would ask them to be responsible with it. All right? Be responsible. Be under the care of a medical doctor. Get your blood work done. Pay attention to your health. If that's something someone's going to do, if that's the choice that you make for yourself as an adult, I would hope people would take a degree of responsibility. I don't condone abuse, meaning excessive use of these substances, relying on them really heavily. But for some people's life goals or whatever reasons, they feel the need to use them. And that's a personal choice I think people should make on their own. I don't think they should be forced into that choice. The problem we get into, though, is that these things have been so demonized because there are people who abuse. I mean, we just look at the deaths we're seeing right now related to the abuse. Right here on YouTube, Dallas McCarver, where's Piana, C.T. Fletcher, possibly. We're talking about these substances are definitely killing people, not necessarily just the anabolics by themselves. There are a lot of other factors going on, but they're a factor. But that's what we see from abuse. That's what we see from abusing your body. And I don't think that should be taken lightly. The problem we run into, though, is that because of the examples of abuse, these things do get demonized. There is a big social stigma, and that carries over into sports. While on that same token, what is it that we want? We want to see our athletes bigger, stronger, faster. We want to see supermen. Now, a lot of people say, well, genetics and hard work. Yeah, genetics and hard work to a degree. In fact, there are genetic freaks who will beat people who are on drugs. They absolutely exist. It's guys like Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong was a genetic freak. Lance Armstrong was a genetic freak. He genetically, naturally had the ability to beat a lot of top athletes in endurance without any drugs. Because he had genetic abnormalities, and that has been noted. That was studied. Researchers actually studied his genome in his body. He is a genetic freak. Well, what happens when the genetic freak goes on modest amounts of PEDs? That's what he did. Then he was unbeatable. Even people on drugs couldn't touch him. They couldn't touch him. That's what people want to see. I mean, that's where the money is in sports. So it's this big fight between how do we keep people interested by making our athletes bigger, stronger, faster, better, versus how do we present a clean image of sports? How do we try to convince everyone that people aren't on all these evil drugs? It's quite a conundrum we have, don't we? And then here's the big one that we run into also, is even what politicians and leaders have said. Do we really want all the kids to know that all their heroes, their sports heroes, are all on anabolics? They're all on performance-enhancing drugs. If we tell them that, all these young kids are going to go on these drugs. And you want to talk about where the real health problems start, 16, 17, 18-year-olds going on these substances, that's where your real health problems start. That's where your real risks happen. All right, certain risks from these substances are definitely much higher in teenagers. They're much higher in teenagers. So we run into this problem between allowing people to do what they want with their bodies, trusting people with the responsibility of their own bodies and not necessarily to abuse their body even if they choose to do certain things, right? Trusting people with their own responsibility versus the social image, the message we send to our children, the message we send to the public about fair play. You know, it's a big conflict. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance there. I personally don't know where the answer is, but, you know, when people step back and say, well, you know, this is guys like John Jones or the cheaters, what deluded reality do you live in to where people are competing for millions of dollars? Drug testing is imperfect. They've worked really, really, really hard to make drug testing tougher and harder. Billions of dollars have been spent doing this, so much so that drug testing has become a business. Man, we spent $4 billion for researchers and medical doctors to test people for the 2012 Olympics. $4 billion. There's also a business created around cheating on the drug test. There are multi-million-dollar businesses that specialize in this stuff. It's all underground, but they're out there. We saw it with Balco Labs. Remember when they talked even with the owner of Balco Labs? What did he say? Victor Conte? He said there's at least a dozen other companies doing exactly what I'm doing. It's just a business. You know, this is the big mess that we create. The big mess that we create with this. What's the right answer? I don't know. We as a society are going to have to figure that out. We're going to have to find our own balance with this. But right now, there's no balance. It's a big mess. But anyone who honestly thinks with there being millions, multi-million-dollar contracts, you don't think people are going to cheat for a 10% edge to perform 5 or 10% better in your sport when you have events that are paying millions of dollars for one sporting event? You don't think someone's going to shell out $10,000, $20,000 out of their pocket to a medical doctor who can help them cheat? And you don't think their opponents are doing the exact same thing? If you're really that delusional in your head that you don't think that that's what's going on in every single sport where there's money involved, if you honestly don't think that that's what's happening in every single sport with millions of dollars on the line, then you are a very naive person. You are very out of touch with reality if you really believe that's the case. Even the athletes who scream about how clean they are and how everyone else is cheating and the cheating makes them sick, you really think they're not doing it. You don't think that's just to save face and look good in the public with virtue signaling? That's all it is. So John Jones messed up on his math. He got popped with a test they weren't expecting to get popped with. They got hit with a different metabolite test. That's all that happened. You know what? And here's the kicker. Do you really think that's all he was on, or is that just what they caught him? Is that just what they caught him with? They didn't detect the other 3 drugs he was probably on. You know what? His opponent, they didn't detect the 3 or 4 that he was on because he did better with a calculator. He did better breaking out his calculator and clearance times. It's no different. It's all the way it is. But here's the fact of the matter is, when it's written in the rules that if you fail this test, you lose. You fail this test, you can be stripped of your records. You fail this test, there will be consequences. Then, well, that's the rules. The rules state don't get caught. If you get caught, you're in trouble. So there you have it. It's that simple. That's what's in the rules. He should have done a better job not getting caught. People say, well, he shouldn't have cheated. Well, he can't win without cheating. Neither could his opponent. Welcome to the real world. Welcome to sports becoming a big business. All right, we already opened Pandora's box on this generations ago. Our generation doesn't get a say in the matter. I'm 40 years old. My generation doesn't get a say in the matter. It's already there. It's too late. How do we clean this mess up? I don't have a clue. But we don't clean it up by people being ignorant and stupid about it. People being in denial of what the reality is of it. That's not how you clean up a mess. But, you know, it is what it is. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.